Welcome to New Hampshire Politics with John Burt. I'm John Burt. I want to thank you for joining me today, and we have a real special guest today, and it's Frank Guinta, and he's running for New Hampshire 1st Congressional District as a congressman. How are you doing, Frank?
I'm great, John. How are you?
Great, and I really want to thank you for coming on, and it's a pleasure having you here.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
No, I know you get a lot of praise in Goffstown. You always do a good vote over here, so it should work out. And to start right off, I guess let the viewer know where's a good way to get a hold of you.
Sure. Well, my website is teamguinta.com.
Yep.
And I invite people also to come to our campaign office, which is in downtown Manchester at 1850 Elm Street on the corner of Elm and Webster.
Oh, great. And if they want a sign?
We can provide signs of many sizes right there at the campaign office, literature.
Yeah.
We obviously always love people to help out with phone calls and door-to-door. We always run a very strong grassroots campaign.
Yeah.
So if there are people from Goffstown who want to help out in the final weeks going into the September 9th primary, certainly appreciate that.
All right. I'm sure many people will give you a buzz because I'm seeing your signs pop up all over.
Yeah, they are. We've got a lot of broad support throughout the state and in Goffstown, and I certainly appreciate that.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll get right to the questions. I wrote several of them down. And now, what drove you to seek public office?
Well, I've always been focused and interested in serving people, and I was very fortunate at a younger age to be able to do that. I started in our state's legislature, which I think is a phenomenal place to learn about state government, and it's a way to communicate effectively on behalf of your constituents. Most people in New Hampshire who are civic-minded like to serve in the legislature,
yes.
And I enjoyed that time, I'm sure, as much as you do. And
yeah.
that got me into the decision to run for alderman in Manchester. And I served 2 terms as an alderman, and then I recall one day I was a little frustrated. I was having a disagreement with then mayor, who happened to be a Democrat. And I came home and I told my wife, I'm going to run for mayor. And she looked at me like I was crazy. and she said, well, what happened? And I said, look, I can be frustrated as an alderman and not get the things accomplished that I think are important on behalf of the city because we have a mayor that has a different point of view, or I can do something about it and I can run.
Yeah.
And I spent about a year campaigning. Nobody thought I could win. I was a young guy against an incumbent popular mayor.
Yeah.
But we were able, back in '05, to win by a little over 500 votes. And
wow.
we're able, to provide the first tax cut in a decade in the city. We're able to bring the crime rates down dramatically, focused on improving education. We were cross-training employees to have better services in our city. And we ended up being rated one of the best managed small to medium-sized cities in America when I was mayor.
Wow, that's quite an honor. Yeah. Well, how does the fact that you're running a small business change your perspective as a candidate?
I've had a couple of different small businesses. I'm running a startup now.
Yep.
And it gives you, first of all, the understanding of what a small business owner is going through in this stagnant economy. Most of our economy is driven in New Hampshire by small business. More than 95% of our economy is driven by small business owners. Yeah. And when the economy continues to sputter as it has, that not just affects the individual, but that family, the potential of maybe growing your business, hiring people. So I have understood the requirements and obligations of providing, signing the front of a paycheck. I've also signed the back of a paycheck. It both matter.
Yes.
But it really gives me depth and understanding, I believe, as to what average families are going through. So I hope we can turn that experience with my congressional, my mayoral, and my legislative experience into what I would consider a strong representative for New Hampshire in Washington.
Yeah, because there's a tremendous amount of small business in New Hampshire.
There is.
Yeah.
There is. More than 95% of our economy is driven by small business.
Yeah, so we really need a representative down there.
You're a small business owner yourself.
I am. Well, that's why I've always supported you in the past because, I know you've always, supported small business. So.
Well, small business needs, first of all, the regulatory requirements are getting ever larger. The tax liability is growing and growing. and that restrains growth for your business.
Yes.
So we've got to take care of that. You know, if we want to make sure that we have no income tax and no sales tax in the state of New Hampshire, the best way to do it is leave businesses alone. You know, allow them to grow, allow them to flourish. And I would argue, you know, we need to be reducing the tax burden on small businesses. That allows that growth, which ultimately grows the economy and grows job opportunity for anyone who's looking for a job.
Yeah, it does, absolutely. Has your campaign focused on regional, you know, specific issues or, you know, tours as you go around the state?
Yes, when I was in Congress, you know, most people get the sense that, you know, your obligation and responsibility is to vote down in DC and go to committee hearings, and that's true. Yeah. That being said, I would come home while I served every weekend, held 6 different job fairs, trying to get people back to work, held 3 different manufacturing summits, trying to bridge the relationship between manufacturers and our educational institutions in the state. And as I campaign, I've held 2 tours, one an economic tour, visiting businesses, talking with employers and employees about what's most important to them relative to job growth. And then I've also been on a healthcare tour, meeting with not just hospitals and physicians, but other medical providers, trying to get a sense of how is the Affordable Care Act impacting those different organizations and communities around the state.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and you know, it must be very helpful for you to, when you're in Washington, to hear these feedbacks.
It's important to listen to your constituents.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big distinction between myself and Carol Shea Porter. Being home, being accessible, listening to what people have to say. And you don't just talk to the people that agree with you, you talk to everybody.
Yes.
But that's important as you serve, and you do that as a state legislator, and I've done that also as a mayor, and I was able to do that as a member of Congress. I think it's an important obligation and responsibility of the job. And I think here in New Hampshire, we hold people to that high regard, that they need to be accessible.
Yes.
That they're going to listen to what we have to say, and then do their very best to reflect the views and values of our communities.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you know, you have to stay in touch with the voters. Have you been able to consolidate the support from individuals across the district?
You know, when I decided to run late last summer, it was after watching Carol Shea Porter and how she was conducting herself, her voting record. She hadn't held any town hall meetings,
no, not one.
Which is very, very frustrating to people in New Hampshire. Her voting record continues to be voting with Nancy Pelosi almost 100% of the time. As a matter of fact, you know, the members of Congress are on August recess, which is a time where you're supposed to come back to your community, to your state, and hold town hall meetings, make yourself accessible. Congresswoman Shea Porter spent some time in California fundraising with Nancy Pelosi in wine country, with billionaires like Tom Steyer. I just don't think that's in keeping with what the expectation is of your member of Congress. They should be home.
Yeah. Well, especially in New Hampshire.
Yeah,
you know, we want to see our representatives.
We do, and I think as a result of that, our campaign has been able to have 26 consecutive weeks of endorsements. I appreciate, you know, the depth of support that I've been able to ensure all throughout the district. It shows, you know, that we're in a position to come out of the primary strong and be competitive and to beat Carol Shea Porter in November.
Yes, yeah. Now, I did notice that the Foster Daily Democrat just endorsed you. And could you explain to the viewers, you know, what they were referencing to on some of the points that they pointed out?
Foster's Daily Democrat does encompass the Rochester area where Carol Shea Porter is from.
Yes.
And I did earn their endorsement last week, and I appreciate that. And a couple of things they talked about was, you know, the depth of issues that I have, the ability to communicate effectively with people, and do it in a way that I think is becoming of the office. It's an important endorsement. It does tend to say to people, you know, look, here's someone who's going to listen to your needs, who's going to contemplate the legislative challenges that we face as a nation, and is going to do it with listening to the community he represents, the state that he represents, but also using fact-based information. So I was very privileged to have that endorsement. We have endorsements from a whole host of people and individuals and businesses and veterans all throughout the state. But you never take anything for granted. You work hard.
That's right.
You try to earn every vote, and that's why I'm working as hard as I am. I care very deeply about people here in Goffstown and the state of New Hampshire and trying to get this country back on the right direction.
Yeah. And they can see some of those endorsements on teamguinta.com.
Sure,
right?
if you go to teamguinta.com, we've got all of our endorsements listed of all the different people. So from your community, if you want to take a look, but all the other communities. And we've got a depth of support from different people within the Republican Party, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, that is quite a endorsement from the Foster Daily Democrat. America is really sick of the gridlock. As a mayor and congressman, how can you bridge that gap, bipartisan?
John, when I was mayor of Manchester, I was a Republican. We had 14 aldermen, and 11 were Democrat.
Wow.
2 were Republican, and 1 was an independent. I needed 8 votes to get anything accomplished.
Yeah.
After I won, I tried my very best to put sort of party politics aside, put the political affiliation aside, and try to do what was in the best interest of the city. Now, I had run on and was victorious in cutting taxes, making government more efficient, focusing on dealing with the crime issue, which back then we had a significant crime problem in the city.
Yeah.
And people wanted, they wanted leadership in those areas. So I worked with the Democrats on the board, was able to deliver that first tax cut borrowing in half, made the city more efficient, and as a result we were able to be recognized as one of the best managed cities in America. I took that same approach in Washington as a congressman. Most people don't realize I got 3 bills signed into law by this president. 2 were transportation related, and 1 was veterans, cleaning up a veterans cemetery in the Philippines, which had been ignored by the American government. Something important to veterans across the country.
Yes.
But we had direct descendants from New Hampshire who had been buried in that cemetery. And it pains me to think that you would die in service of your country, yet your final resting place would not be taken care of in a dignified manner. So I've been able to find common ground with people on both sides of the aisle, and that's the kind of approach that I'll continue to bring if I'm fortunate enough to serve again in Congress.
Yeah, well, no, that is good, especially down in the Philippines. I mean, that's quite a feat to get that bill passed. It must have been a lot of work.
It wasn't easy. It took the full 2 years that I was in office. Things do move slowly.
Yes.
And then last year, the memorandum of agreement, after the legislation was signed, the memorandum of agreement was executed, and now we're taking care of Clark Cemetery, and I'm very grateful for that. For that bipartisan work that I was able to spearhead. Yeah,
well, and that's what we need. Now, what is your main legislative concerns with Congresswoman Shea Porter?
Well, I don't think she is a true reflection of the state of New Hampshire in the sense that, number one, she continues to support Obamacare, despite the fact that people in New Hampshire consistently oppose it. And people have lost their insurance. 22,000 people lost their insurance as a result of it. In Rochester, Congresswoman Shea Porter's hometown, Frisbee Hospital was excluded from the network, from the exchange. 7,000 people who were previously uninsured and getting care at Frisbee are no longer able to go to Frisbee. So they've lost their hospital, they've lost their doctor. That to me is not
And that's in her own district.
It's in her own hometown.
Wow.
And I don't understand how you could allow that to happen and then continue to double down and support the Affordable Care Act. Number two, she has a very different perspective on how to grow the economy. She believes in a strong federal government, centralized government. I disagree. I think individual rights are important. I think states' rights are important. And I think federal government should be limited. It can be and should be effective and efficient, but it needs to be limited. She feels, for example, that we should be raising taxes to close the gap on our debt and our long-term debt and on our deficit. I disagree. I think we actually need to reform the tax code, reduce it, simplify it, make it simpler, fair for individuals. I think individuals should be able to file their income tax on a one piece of paper.
That would be nice.
You know, we have 7 tax rates. We should bring those down to 3.
Yeah.
That gives some certainty also to businesses who file, you know, as an S corp, and then we also need to change the tax code on the corporate side so we can encourage more of those overseas businesses to come back to America so we can have job growth. Carol sees it very differently. She wants to continually raise taxes, and I just don't believe that that's consistent with the views and values of the state of New Hampshire.
No, yeah, I agree with that. How has the Congresswoman failed the district here?
I think in this term, considering how she made her start, if you recall, when she first ran for office in 2006 and beat then Congressman Bradley, she essentially started her campaign at a Congressman Jeb Bradley town hall, where she started arguing with him at a town hall meeting, questioning him at a town hall meeting.
Yeah.
She made a big deal out of being accessible, holding town hall meetings. Fast forward to this term. She has not held one town hall meeting the entire time she's been serving in Congress in this term. When she does come home, she's not doesn't provide public schedules, doesn't allow the public to access her, and that's again something that I think is very important in New Hampshire.
It is.
You know, come back, give explanations for what's going on in the country, how you're voting. Take the temperature of your constituents, get a sense of where they want you to be on particular issues. And that's in keeping with the New Hampshire tradition. When I was mayor, I held town hall meetings.
Yeah.
So not just as a congressman, I held 24 as a congressman. But I also, you know, held what I called ward by ward meetings, which were effectively town hall meetings when I was mayor. I had town hall meetings in Goffstown for people, you know, who had direct connection to Manchester, because I think Manchester and Goffstown feel somewhat connected, and we are.
Yep, we are.
In many ways. So that's what really disappoints me the most.
Yeah.
And I think most people are frustrated that she doesn't allow that accessibility.
Yes, yeah, because, and I'm sure when you held those town meetings, all the questions probably weren't dandelions.
Oh no, no! You know, you don't just invite your friends.
Yes.
I mean, they're open to the public. When I hold a town hall meeting, it's open to anyone.
Yeah.
And many a time you would get tough questions from people who disagreed with a vote that you took or a policy decision that you've made or hold. But that is, to me, what New Hampshire is supposed to be about.
Absolutely.
You are supposed to engage people who agree with you and disagree with you.
Yeah.
I can learn something from that, and constituents have their opportunity to voice and express their concerns. And maybe we can find a way to God forbid, compromise and find a solution where both parties are happy. You know, I do believe that government should be effective and efficient. There are sometimes people are going to disagree with what you do. I mean, not everybody wanted me to cut taxes when I was mayor. I felt strongly on it. I campaigned on it. I then followed through on that promise. But not everybody agreed with that. I mean, most people did. But there are those who disagree with the policy. But having those town hall meetings gives you that opportunity to have that dialogue with anybody who would like to join in.
Yeah. And now, how would you represent the district different than she is right now?
Well, first, I would make myself personally accessible to everyone and anyone. And I give out my cell phone number to this day. I mean, I give it out now. It's 860-0474, and I invite people to call me directly. You don't have to go through a whole team and a whole staff to speak with me. But being home, I firmly believe, John, that it's not just committee hearings and voting in D.C.
That's right.
You can take the office when you're here and make it a very strong constituent-minded office. So to the extent that I held 6 job fairs, trying to get people back to work, including a job fair dedicated to veterans and their families, those things are important. Think about the veterans that are coming home, have to reintegrate into normal society again, but aren't sure how to start a business or get back, into the business world. Providing that assistance, a small helping hand to somebody, is critically important. So I would continue to make this office the office of the people, open and accessible to everybody, strong constituent service, having the job fairs again, making sure that we connect people in the state of New Hampshire every opportunity that they require.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's exactly the way we should do it. And how would you focus on, on the 114th Congress that's going to be coming up?
I think there's going to be several key issues that are going to come up in January. Now, my hope is that we have a Republican United States Senate, because the problem has been Harry Reid and blocking all of the bipartisan legislation that has come out of the House of Representatives. So if that changes, we have the opportunity to do real tax reform in Congress next year. We have the opportunity to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act and do some meaningful market-based solutions for health care that focus on patient-centered outcomes, favorable outcomes, that give people true access, more access to quality of care, as well as more carriers, which would reduce the cost of your premiums. Preserve and protecting Medicare is going to be critical in this next Congress, and we would take that up through the budget process. And really starting to put a budget together that balances our budget, which then in turn allows us to start paying down our long-term debt. So I think those are the main areas that we would focus on in the first several months. But on top of that, there's an oversight requirement that clearly we need. We've had this president overstep his executive authority.
He has.
Whether it's him directly in the directives he's given to Homeland Security, allowing essentially amnesty, which is what we've seen over the last several months through his DACA order, that needs to be rescinded, or whether it's the NSA, who is illegally, capturing through bulk data information from you, from me, from every American citizen. Obviously, there's going to be some oversight and reform in terms of the specificity of legislation in those areas. So we'll have to focus on that as well. But it'll be a busy term. There's a lot that needs to be done. But ultimately, the most important thing is that people want to have an opportunity to get a better job.
Yes.
So if we reduce spending, grow the economy through tax reform, and have growth, I think this country will be far better off, and smaller states like New Hampshire will be far better off, and that's where my focus will be.
And one thing I like about you, Frank, is you're ready to go.
I am. I'll be ready on day one. I'll tell you that.
That's it. And you don't have to look for the bathroom because you already know where it is.
No, I know where things are, so I can hit the ground running, and that's important and that's valuable.
It is.
I very much was honored to spend 2 years there, and felt like, because of my past legislative experience here in the state as well as my executive experience, I probably fared better than most in my freshman class. But now, returning, I have a laser-like focus on the things that I want to do, and have a way of getting those things accomplished.
Yes. Well, we're going to end it right here. We're going to have a short show, and if you want to talk to the viewers for about a minute and let them know why you should be
Sure. Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate coming back to Goffstown, and want to thank the people of Goffstown for your past support of my candidacy. We have a primary on September 9th, and one that I don't take lightly, and I hope that you'll come out and support Frank Guinta for Congress. And if you have a question or a need from me, please don't hesitate to call. Again, my direct phone number is 860-0474. Our campaign office is at 1850 Elm Street in Manchester, on the corner of Elm and Webster. And I invite you to come and join the team and be part of the opportunity in changing America for the better. Thank you all very much.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on again, Frank. It's
good to see you.
Yes, and September 8th it is.
September 9th.
9th, yep, September 9th. Yeah, luckily I'm not in a primary.
Yeah, you don't have a primary, so you're focused on November 4th.
I am, yeah, but I think you'll do very well,
Thank you
especially
very
here
much.
in Goffstown.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for watching us, and again, we had Frank Guinta, and he is running for Congress as our representative down in D.C., and remember to look him up, teamguinta.com, or go over to his office over in Manchester. Which was the address?
1850 Elm Street.
Yep. Make sure you stop over there and grab a sign. And I want to thank you for watching. Until next week, I'll see you later. Bye now.